Welcome back. This is John Klotz, host of Money Talks Media. Welcome to our bi-weekly segment dedicated to growing your money in and around the GTA. And we've got our good friend, Paul Mesburis. He is the Senior Portfolio Manager for Excel Investment Council. And thanks, Paul, for joining us. Appreciate you coming and sharing your knowledge and viewpoints on emerging markets.
Thank you, John. It's a pleasure to be here.
Okay, so let's get into it. I mean, we sort of set the table where we said basically, you know, the North American markets are flat, so there's a lot of problems in Europe. You love emerging markets, that's why you're doing it. Tell me about some of these companies you own and some of these countries you're investing in. Go for it.
Well, for example, in India, the banking industry is a great industry. It's very regulated. The banks have very good capital ratios. They're growing quite well, and it's a simple business in a country like India, whereby you go to your bank and you get a loan, and you deposit your money there, and then they lend it out. Versus in North America, it's a very complex business.
Yes.
With all the derivatives and all the capital markets part of the business. One of the banks that we like in India, for example, is ICICI Bank, which is one of the leading banks in the country.
What's that stand for? ICIC,
India Commercial
Investment Council of Canada. I don't know.
Well, not exactly, but anyway.
Anyway, carry on. I digress.
So that company there, they're growing their earnings by 25% a year.
Now, I have clients who are from India, and when you talk to them about how the GICs do here compared to how they do in India, they get like 12 to 15%. I've heard that from them. Is that accurate? Is that the rates of return on just simple investments like
it's
guaranteed
not
investments?
It's not that high. It's
okay.
High single digits in India.
Oh, high single. Okay.
Yeah. In Brazil, actually, it is over 12%.
12%.
In
okay.
Brazil, and that's on sovereign debt.
Yes.
So if you're buying a Brazilian government bond,
yes,
short term, few years, it's paying 12.5%.
Unbelievable.
And that is investment grade.
Yes.
Credit.
So okay. So you like Indian banks?
That's right.
How many of them are there? Is there just one main institutional bank in
No,
India?
No. There's a number of banks, and we probably have about 4 in our portfolio. We have ICICI Bank, HDFC, the State Bank of India, and even some commercial finance companies. We own a company called Shriram Transport and Finance, and they're actually in the pre-owned commercial vehicle segment market. So they lend to entrepreneurs that need financing to buy one truck or a three-wheeler. Yeah. And it's a very fragmented sort of market, but they've been able to grow throughout the country, and they have about 600 branches throughout the country. So they really have feet on the ground.
Wow.
In terms of customer service officers that are going out to get the business and then servicing the business. And this is not a business that you can set up a big tower in Mumbai and then have people mail you in the business.
They
right?
need to be handheld and walk through it, and they're into relationships.
Exactly, and they actually bought the business, part of the business they bought out of GE a couple of years ago, because GE figured out that, hey, we don't want to be in 600 different communities throughout India, so they sold part of their business to Shriram.
Interesting. Yeah. Are Indians getting into things like mortgages and stuff like that? I mean, that's a debt product.
That's
I know
right.
that they haven't really. That's a new concept to them.
It is. It is a new concept in places like India and in Brazil as well, where the mortgage penetration is still single digits.
Yes.
But as people come into the workforce, they are obviously looking for their first home, and are willing to take on some debt as part of that.
They need us North Americans to screw them up a little bit, and you say, hey, debt is good,
That's right.
Load it up anyway.
You should open up a branch
exactly.
there.
Well, anyway, I have my own thoughts on that. So what else do you like in India? And I know I want to throw another company at you, and the Tata, the car.
That's right.
Tell me what's going on there. There's a vehicle for around $2,000.
That's right. They have an entry-level vehicle that's it's about that price.
Yeah.
But more importantly, the car penetration in places like China and India, it's very low. It's very low. China, for example, about 18 months ago, actually overtook the U.S. in terms of vehicle sales. So on a monthly basis, there's more cars being sold in China than there is in the U.S.
And what are they buying? Are they buying these econo cars?
Yes, they're buying, the average price point is lower than your North American vehicle, which is, probably close to $30,000 today. So the price point is lower, but the volume is higher, and the penetration is still very low in both those economies. And you have companies like Tata that also own some global brands, like the Jaguar and Land Rover brand as well.
Right. Are those being purchased there? Or is it still, like you said, it's still sort of?
It's both. You've got different segments of the economy, and you have a burgeoning middle class and a burgeoning upper class as well in places like Mumbai, and so you have quite a disparate sort of income level there.
Are we going to see a change in immigration where Canadians are going to be emigrating to India as opposed to the other way? I mean, traditionally, a lot of people have left there, come here for a better life. But it seems to me, from what I'm talking to a lot of these people, it's not so bad over there, that there's some real improvements. It's actually, if you have a little bit of money, it's a wonderful place to live.
No, and you see a lot of younger people coming to North America for their educational training, getting graduate degrees, working in North America for a few years, and then moving back and starting up their own business.
Interesting.
So you do see that.
Okay, fair enough. What other companies have you been taking a look at in these emerging markets that you find of interest?
Well, we like companies like Samsung Electronics.
Why is that? Cell phones?
Yeah, they have great market share in cell phones, and the smartphone market is growing quite nicely. So they have very good market share there as well.
I figured they don't have anything like a Bell Canada there. Like everyone would probably buys a cell phone. The cell phone might be their first phone, as opposed to people in North America where they sort of grew up with a household phone. Would that be accurate?
That's right. Okay. It's challenging, expensive, and it takes a lot of time to get a landline.
Yeah.
So most people have 2 or 3 cell phones.
Okay. And what about what other firms? Like, how about engineering firms and things like that? What
Larsen and Toubro, for example, is a large Indian engineering firm.
Yeah.
And they have significant market share throughout Asia. They actually built 3 out of the 4 airports in India, in the 4 major centers.
Wow.
So very significant, larger than a Canadian company like S&C Lavalin.
Now, do you walk the floors of these companies? Do you go and visit them and see what their management is all about? And
well, in a number of these countries, we have sub-advisors at Excel that are located in these markets. So, for example, in India, we have Birla Sun Life, which is the 5th largest asset manager. They're based out of Mumbai, and they've been managing the Excel India Fund for a little over 13 years.
Interesting. Have you been there, by the way? Have you visited these emerging markets?
I've not been to India. I've been to Brazil. I've been to Thailand. So I've been to a few of them.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I imagine that's part of your routine. Is you have to see it to believe it. If one was to visit these countries, I imagine they'd be like, I haven't done the trek to China or India, but I know people who have, and they said basically their modernization is way ahead of ours.
Well, it's amazing. I was in Thailand quite a while ago, and I went to the movies.
Yeah.
And the shopping mall was very modern. It had the Gucci's, the Armani's.
Yep.
And I go to the movie, the Cineplex there, and I was able to choose my seat. On the screen they show you, which seat would you like, sir? And bang, I want to sit in the middle, and I want to sit near the top, and you choose that seat, and off you go. You still can't do that here.
Interesting. Let me ask you, how do you see the who's going to come out ahead, India or China? Who's your? They're both so different.
They're both so different. I would say that the opportunity in India is significantly more.
Why is that?
Given where they are in the cycle.
What does that mean?
India is probably about 10 years behind China.
Okay.
So, I expect that over the next few years that India can probably overtake China in terms of, actual growth rates.
Interesting. Yeah. Because China's an interesting country. I mean, it's basically a dictatorship for all intents and purposes. India isn't.
That's right. So it's the world's largest democracy.
And they speak English, and I've always my hunch has always been, give the democracy the chance, they'll do it. But it seems to me that China can go, okay, we're having the Olympics, you million people, you need to move now. It's just an interesting, and yet they've managed, the Chinese manufacturers are, basically manufacturing everything.
That's right. It's quite interesting. Like you have a great company like Apple,
Yeah.
for example. And what is Apple? Apple is really an engineering and design company.
Yes.
They don't make anything. But they have great engineers.
Yeah.
And guess who makes all their products? Companies in China. That have, Foxconn, for example, is one of the companies that makes the iPhone and the iPad. They have 1 million workers.
Wow.
And Apple has about 40,000 employees.
What are they paying these people? Like what sort of wages can people expect to obtain in China, comparable to here? Like what do people work for?
Well, the wages are much lower, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, but as people move up in terms of the skill level,
Yeah.
they can make North American type wages. Like if you're a senior engineer, you can be making probably close to $100,000.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. But obviously not everyone is a senior engineer.
Interesting.
So the per capita is going up in terms of
Yeah.
the wages, and but the productivity is still quite high.
Yeah.
When you look at the output per dollar spent.
Interesting. And this is a whole other topic. At what point does their standard of living go up so much that they actually start being as expensive as us to pay their workforce?
We probably have some time for that.
Yeah.
But it is increasing, and places
Yeah.
like Shanghai and Beijing are becoming more expensive to live in, and you obviously need a higher paying job to live in those cities.
Interesting. Okay. What other companies do you want to talk about? Anything else that our listeners would be the stocks that you're watching? And
We also like HTC, which is a handset manufacturer as well. They make the Google phone.
Yes.
One of the Android phones, and
Which country?
They're out of Korea.
Korea. Okay.
Yeah. So that's a great stock.
Now, is Korea not considered a developed country, or?
Yeah,
I mean,
it's on the line actually.
I know North Korea would be a whole different story.
Yeah, exactly. So South Korea is still technically an emerging market.
Okay.
Even though it's got a much more advanced sort of economy versus China, for example. And there's actually a review that takes place annually, and the review the results will be coming out tomorrow. And MSCI, which is one of these U.S. bodies that tries to define who's an emerging market or not, will be updating the world as to where South Korea falls into by tomorrow.
And what do you think the outcome will be?
I think
are they in or are they out?
I think it'll stay as an emerging market probably for another year.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What are they? Go ahead. You're on. Keep talking about companies.
Energy is another great sector. One of the companies that we like in Brazil is Petrobras.
What's that?
Well, energy is important. We believe that the world will continue to need energy. There is no sort of alternative energy that's going to replace oil anytime soon. Alternative energy is good at the margin, but we still, oil is the key driver.
Didn't Brazil become energy efficient at some point? They were manufacturing alternative energy sources.
Well, they're a big consumer of ethanol.
That's right.
As well. But and a lot of their cars are on flex fuel.
Right.
So you can buy a car that can run on ethanol or gas or both.
What about housing? Any building companies that you're investing in that are building houses for these urbanization models that you're talking about?
There's a few small ones, and right now we're actually accumulating one of them, so I don't really want to discuss it. But
exactly.
but there are a few that we do like that are growing quite nicely and have attractive valuations.
Okay. Lastly, what sort of due diligence do you do when you pick a stock? How do you follow it and decide on it at the end of the day?
Well, it comes down to a number of things. One is, do we like the industry that it's in? Do we like the valuation that the stock is trading at? So we look at a lot of stocks. Do we like the management? Is the management credible? Do they have a track record?
Yeah.
Right? That's important because, as we've seen with a number of things that go on in the world, if you don't have a credible management team, that can be a disaster.
I agree.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, this has been great. We've got Paul Mesburis, Senior Portfolio Manager of Excel Group of Funds. Actually, it's called Excel Investment Council, correct?
Yes. So
I've always called you Excel Group of Funds because that's how I think they've marketed to me. Any closing comments as to for our listeners about emerging markets, how they find out more information about Excel funds? Go ahead.
Sure. So To find out more information about Excel funds, we would ask that you talk to your financial advisor, or please go to our website at www.excelfunds.com, EXCELFUNDS.com.
Terrific. Thank you so much, Paul. We've really enjoyed this. This is Money Talks Media going off the air, and we've had Paul Mesburis. Thank you for sharing your information. We'll see you in 2 weeks' time.
Thank you, John. It was a
Thanks.
pleasure.
Great.